This is Common Courtesy, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. A talk show for working LGBTQ plus individuals and allies who are active in their own communities and who also wish to stay woke about what's happening in today's world. With your host, Sean Nicholas. I'm still sour for not winning this little acting award in high school. I'm still sour. Angelique Young.
I can't do the caged bird thing. It's not my thing. I'm literally, my symbol is a freaking half.
And Ivan Alexander.
Oh, I need to change this. No, you can't change this. Okay? Before Gaga, I was born this way. Okay?
This is Common Courtesy.
That was doomed from the start.
And shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Around Sue's or whatever, and
No, that was me.
but that's our stereo.
So, let's start the conversation. Yes. Hello, and welcome back to Common Courtesy TV, a conversation on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective. I am your host and moderator, Sean Nicholas. I am an actor, I am a performer, and I'm a sobriety advocate. I've been sober for over a year from alcoholism, so I'm glad to be here and with you guys. So we are back for this week. Everyone always asks me what my podcast is about. This show is just like the intro, what it says. It is a show on modern society from an LGBTQ plus perspective, basically giving us a safe space to talk about, things that are happening in our modern world, whether it's politics, whether it's pop culture news, things like that. And not only do I want us to be heard, but I want us to be seen while we're doing it and taken seriously. So here we are. This week, I am with a good friend of mine who recently posted on Facebook about what's been happening at a certain venue in downtown St. Petersburg. And I've had this venue on our show. The venue is called Zoie's. I'm pretty sure if you're not living under a bubble or a rock, you've probably heard some rumblings of, a little bit of perhaps drama or maybe some real issues going on at the new spot that's joining our community. So to this week, I decided to bring on my good friend who's been a performer for almost a little bit longer than I was performing as a drag performer. We also started a show together at Hofbräu House a couple of years back before the pandemic. We've done shows with Adriana Sparkle together. We've been at Enigma together. She is becoming quickly a leader in our community. I wanted to welcome and share her story today. Please welcome to our panel, Lilith Black.
Hello. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again too. It's good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about what we've experienced.
Absolutely. Like I said, I said earlier, this is a safe space, to talk about an experiences. And, sometimes people think that when you have an experience somewhere and you speak out about it, all of a sudden you're the bad guy. No, we just want to know what's going on. I think everyone should know. So anyways, before we get into this, I kind of want to let's say if no one's ever met you, can you tell us a little bit about your history in performing in drag and in St. Petersburg and the Bay Area before we start talking about your relationship with Zoe's and Jeff Baker?
Yes, my name is Lilith Black. I am a St. Pete local, born and raised. I've been performing for almost 6 years now. In June it will be. I'm a non-binary drag artist, and I got my start with people like Sean at Iberian Rooster, like many local drag artists did. And since we've just been, doing our thing, getting involved in activism as one does, and living our best life.
Absolutely. You just recently came from Drag to Tally. How was that experience really fast?
Incredible. It's truly where I met some of the most genuine and loving people I've ever met. I've made a family while doing so, and found a community I never knew I needed and I never knew needed me.
Wow, it's really good to hear. You know, that's why I create, like I said, that's why I created the show, because this is the political issue of why you're out there. You were out there marching and drag to tally, and I've been saying, you know, stay in politics because it's coming, and here we are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And whether
I just want
we wanted to or not, we've all been thrusted into it.
absolutely, and I want to let you know that I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of everyone that stood up and went up there. That took a lot of bravery.
Thank you.
So let's get into this issue. So we were on the phone earlier. We talked about this a little bit before we came to the show. So there's an issue going on at Zoe's, and I'm hearing a lot of different things. So I just wanted to focus just on your story. So when we were on the phone, you said a lot of the things began a little bit before this, but we're going to focus here on a drag brunch that was being produced last year, I believe, when they first opened. Tell me what
Yeah.
happened with that, and you know, where did it go south?
So that's where Zoe's really kicked off. A amazing entertainer, Cleopatra, started their drag brunch there, and she was really one of the driving forces in creating the atmosphere at Zoe's and creating an environment where everyone felt loved, appreciated, and like part of the family. Which I think is why Zoe's kind of shot off at first like it did, because of the atmosphere that the people who worked there created. But very quickly, what I guess went wrong was there was a very negative view of the people who found friendship in Zoe's. Me, Nikki, Clea, and even the GM. We, alongside with some queens from outside of Zoe's, connected and really went like gung ho, trying to create a cast, get things going with the drag side of Zoe's. Um, the really unfortunate part was we got a lot of pushback with that. The more that we started to do on our own without like Jeff really needing to do much of the work, the more we found this very controlling side of Jeff that started to kind of snap out at us when things might not go the way that we planned or the way that he wanted. It
Right,
turned dark fast. Yeah, so of course when you're starting a business, results are kind of the priority. And as we experienced with Hofbrauhaus, every show needs to build and it needs to grow. So Zoe's got really lucky with the opening because the show
mm-hmm.
kicked off and everything was very popular right away. So when other things started to expand from that, he didn't understand that they weren't going to have the same immediate success. Because Zoe's grand opening was Halloween show with Bitch Pudding in Nigeria. And then that went straight into a very successful brunch. So he kind of gained these expectations of success from the get go. And when those weren't being met, it was always looking for someone to blame. It was always finding a reason to be upset at this person for causing it not to be as successful instead of, okay, what can we do to make things better in the future? And
Right, and that's
the more that we tried to make things better, the worse it got, which was kind of the bad part.
okay. And then I remember you were saying something about like, you know, the drag thing being maybe a problem, like not wanting to be a drag bar. Like that's what we were talking about. I remember you saying.
Yeah, that was one of the
So
most
get into
that
that.
that
Like
was
that's
totally. So when things started getting serious, we started having these meetings where they had, there were server meetings, entertainer meetings. At this point, I hadn't started serving yet. I was only there as an entertainer.
uh-huh.
Um, but at one of these meetings, we were talking about how to kind of bring more business to the other days of the week. And because the people in these entertainment meetings are drag artists, the suggestions are usually drag related. And it got to a point where Jeff was getting really aggravated and he snapped at Cleo specifically because he didn't want this to be a drag bar. And
Right.
that kind of keyed into a very almost concerning point of view where he didn't want to scare away people who aren't super comfortable with the queer community. And that's where a lot of the different behaviors, more, there's a post going around that's talking about allyship and talking about making excuses like, I'm not from this time, or I'm just a different kind of person, or that's just how I am. And that's a lot of what Jeff was, is he was like, well, he didn't have the same views on like trans people and trans performers. There were even comments that were made about like, we want drag queens, not trans people up there. And then he used, without even knowing, two trans drag
He said that.
entertainers as examples. Yeah.
He's saying he said that we want drag queens, not trans queens.
So he wanted to make a specific show for people like, I hope they're comfortable with me saying their name, but James Cass was one of the entertainers from the very beginning. And he got a lot of the really, not to his face, but behind the scenes, he got a lot of really nasty comments. There would be bartenders shirtless, and then James would be performing with his chest exposed, and he'd make a comment like, oh, no one wants to see those disgusting scars. Like, he needs to cover up.
Oh.
And that was when that started to get really uncomfortable, because it was hard to have, but yes, it was hard to have a conversation with him about that. But yes, that specific comment was in regards to like James, where he wanted to make a night only to like trans entertainers. Like, he wanted to push that separate from the drag shows as well. Like, I don't know, it's just, it's a weird way to go about things.
Okay. So then, like, you started. So, all right. So you're saying that. So what we have now, it's kind of like a weird, behavior towards the drag show that's probably going to bring some business. And then I hear that you're saying that he wanted a place. I remember him saying that he wanted to be a place for everyone. So like, is that not a problem? Because all I hear, he said, oh, if he's creating like a separate night for trans performers, is that not inclusive? Or
I think it kind of touches on how to be inclusive. I think there's a way to go about things that there's a way that you can go about things that may seem to some as including them, but to the people themselves can sometimes feel like either tokenizing or the opposite. Like, the problem with this was partially the example that he used. He didn't see James going out there as a male entertainer as the same as Cleo going out there in drag. And it's not to certain extents, but that becomes a semantic argument. The problem was when he was talking about creating a night for people like James, when he said, we want our main artist to be drag, he used me and Cleo as examples of drag. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't even like see us as trans people for some reason because we do drag. It was a really weird take. But it's a lot of the different aspects of how he was going about things that key into an overall problematic mindset. It's that like combination of, if it was just the like, we want a trans only show, that would be one thing, but it's the negative comments on top of that, the disassociation between transness and drag as if they can't exist together. It's a lot of things that started to make me aware that this was a person who may have a lot of learning to do before they're ready to be a community leader, which is, from what I understand, what his intention with Zoe's was supposed to be, a community space.
Before we go on a little bit more, I just want to take a small little commercial break. We're going to hear a little bit from Tampa Bay Gay and see what's going on in the community. And you may notice someone else who's in that commercial. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's Dave with Tampa Bay Gay. We're outside of Zippers here in Gulfport. They've just opened up. We're going to go inside and check things out while you check out this week's LGBTQ plus events.
This week, Bulge Apparel and Gifts opened its second location on Central Avenue in St. Pete. Support our small businesses. Be sure to stop by and check them out. It happens once a month. It's time for Pride Bowling at Dunedin Lanes. Thursday, May 4th, $10 includes unlimited cosmic bowling and shoes until 2 a.m. At midnight, a drag show with Jocelyn Summers and special guests Veronica Vixen and Brianna Summers. Drink specials, giveaways, and more. Grab your balls. We'll see you on the lanes. This Saturday, it's finally here. 88.5's Tropical Heatwave at the Cubic Club in Ybor. It's been years since the last one, and now it's back and better than ever. Come celebrate with 15 bands on 3 stages, May 6th, doors open at 5. On May 10th, opening preview night for the Tampa Fringe Festivals in Ybor. This is a free event and offers a glimpse into this year's shows. Some performances include LGBTQ+, comedy, improv, kids fringe, and more. 32 shows, 5 venues, 5 days. Gotta watch them all. Get tickets now and plan your trip. Save the date on May 14th, morning on Mother's Day, a queer and trans healing event presented by Found Family Collective. If you feel you might need to be there, this space is for you. Get your free tickets now.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Come down and definitely check out Zippers. Look at this familiar face. It's Sean from Common Courtesy. Cheers. See everybody next week.
Visit TampaBayGay.com for the latest local events, digital content, and more. Also, please like, share, and subscribe.
Okay, so now we're back. So we're getting a little bit of what's going on at Zoie's and what you experience, Lilith. But so let's get into more of this. So you just talked about doing the drag show and how it kind of became like, almost problematic with the, with the trans community and the dissociation between drag and trans. I wanted to ask you, what was it like working there? Because you told me on the phone that you witnessed and even experienced some inappropriate behavior from, Jeff himself. Can you tell me a little bit about that? First with the other people, and then what happened to you specifically?
Yeah, long before I even knew about a lot of the comments that were made toward me, I started working there because several people quit, which should have been a red flag already.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people who were there were community members that I cared about, so I signed on. And kind of the first person who was getting the brunt of Jeff's like mean girl type of behavior was a very young trans server. I'll leave their, because I have not talked to them about this, I'll leave their name out of it. But their name was very difficult for some of the people to pronounce. So that's when I started to see some of that group mentality of like, oh, they were talking back and forth, making borderline racist, very inappropriate comments about this individual.
Like what?
Just because, well, I mean,
what's the comment? Give it to me. Don't.
Because of their name being hard to pronounce, they were making a lot of jokes about that. The general thing that they were saying was that they were like full of themselves, or because they were demanding their name be pronounced a certain way. Everyone was kind of picking on this person. And then Jeff would make comments about how they dress because they were a trans person. And then again, like, nobody would call them by the pronouns that they prefer, or sorry, I actually hate prefer. Nobody would call them by their pronouns, which I believe are still she, they. Nobody, even some of the more tolerant people in that place were like giving pushback to calling people by their names and like using the pronouns that they use. And that went on to like even cis male servers I saw getting their, on one day he'd be slapping their ass as they're going into the kitchen, and then the next day he'd make a comment about how no one wants to see their like junk in the front of their pants. And neither positive or negative are these okay.
Yeah, so he's slapping servers' asses as the owner,
including the ones that it's always a back and forth. It's always a sexual advance followed by a like negative comment. Like, it's very childish behavior.
So you witness him sexually harassing some of the staff. what about the sexual harassment towards you? Because that's
So he would make like some just like, for me it was more, he would say things to other staff about me, and then they'd come to me and be like, he's making me very uncomfortable. But what the treatment I got was more making fun of me. Like he would use my art and my drag, and like he saw my talents, but then any area where I wasn't at a 10, he would try to tear me down for it. For example,
King. Yeah,
Peaches and Diego, amazing, amazing people who have stepped up and done his karaoke. They, even though I am tone deaf and I hate singing, encouraged me to go up there and like do a number. And despite Jeff getting up there drunk every other night and like burning people's ears out on the mic, he relentlessly made fun of me for my singing, despite me like in advance telling everybody that I was really uncomfortable doing it and that I am tone deaf, which I have no control over. He actually made fun of me for being tone deaf. He used those exact words. Even a black bartender who was like just joking around with some customers, he was like, "Oh, hello, fellow black people. Don't you know this is a white establishment?" One fucking black person who works for the people fired for calling out that there aren't a lot of non-white people in the building. It's like,
and I don't think he was being like an attack.
no,
You know,
he was like trying to
excuse me.
relate to guests.
He wasn't. He was just making a joke.
Yeah.
So
So I stopped working there as a drag performer because there was an incident where I was booked for brunch, and they aren't really great for scheduling. So several weeks before they were even making the schedule, I told the lead server, "Hey, I can't work this day. They booked me for brunch. Don't schedule me."
mm-hmm.
It's been a problem where they've done that in the past.
Scheduled you to work, but
Not
you're
just me, but
performing.
other drag performers. Yeah,
You,
a lot
you're
of performers were expected to somehow manage a full restaurant while working brunch. But like, so I even sent proof of this to the GM. Oh wow, it's 4 things. Never mind. But I sent proof of this to the GM, and it didn't matter when I showed up to be in drag, and so did Cleo, and we couldn't serve. It was made a rule that we had to decide between serving or drag. It was because of a mistake that the server manager made, because he scheduled us even though we gave him an advance notice. It was taken out on us. We were yelled at, and then our ability to either perform or serve was being taken away. That wasn't all drag queens for some reason, because the drag queens who are still there still do both.
mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
so that's why I stopped doing drag there. And then not long after that, they hired someone who had sent me threats in the past. And I very politely asked that I not be scheduled to serve while that person was in the restaurant. And I was called a fucking liar. Just
By who?
by Jeff. I
Oh,
was looking at the messages, the threats that I was sent. I sent them to
he
the
called
GM.
you a liar as you showed him the
Yeah.
text.
I sent the GM the text, and when she showed him the text, he said, "Well, Ash is a fucking liar."
Okay. And then what else happened after that? That's
And
that's
then, so that was
unbelievable. I'm sorry.
There was a table who had a salad and a pulled pork sandwich. That took about 45 minutes.
Ooh, I love
to
pulled
get out.
pork.
Yeah, so you should know that it's usually prepared ahead of time. You can't just like cook up some pulled pork in the time it takes to make it. That's not how restaurants run.
And you said it took 45 minutes. How many people were at the table?
Yeah, so they were complaining. It was my table. They were complaining to Jeff. I was trying to defuse the situation. Jeff comes over, and he tries to feed them bullshit and be like, "Oh, like we were finishing up the meat, and it's just done." He, instead of just genuinely being like, "Hey, sorry it's taking so long, can I take something off your bill?" Like, it would have been a non-issue. So that a
Mm-hmm.
back and forth kind of erupted to the point where Jeff was screaming at these patients, calling patients. Sorry, I'm in the medical field now. He was screaming at these guests, calling them names, saying that they don't know what they're talking about. He called them stupid at one point. And then the shift, they leave. I try to apologize to them. They leave. The shift continues, and he's clearly like on edge. Every
Uh-huh.
interaction that he has with everybody is like almost a yell until. So he brought his grandmother to work that day, who has, I think, dementia, or else she has a memory issue, and she was trying to
Right.
help set up the flowers on the table. And when I decided to leave was when he starts screaming at her. His dementia-ridden grandmother is just trying to help, and she like knocks over one of the
So
vases,
wait,
and he
so
starts screaming at her.
she knocks over a vase and she starts screaming. So wait,
It's like a
she's
little vase, yeah.
so you're telling me the whole thing with the table, right? The food's coming out 45 minutes. It's taking about 45 minutes. How many people were at the table, and was the restaurant full?
Oh, they were the only people in the restaurant, and
And
he
it was
wanted
taking
to
45 minutes. So then he
yeah,
gets into a screaming match with them instead of just
because of
generally apologizing.
yeah,
And then we go on to grandma, who's also there today, and then she's trying to help set up flower arrangements on the table. She knocks one over, and he starts screaming at her. How did that make you feel? And watch, because this is where you said this is where this made you leave. How did that make you
yeah.
feel witnessing that? You
So
think he
not
was
long
drunk,
before
or
that, well, it was the morning, so I don't know. It really resonated with me. Like it actually almost like personally hurt because like it really just shows who he is as a person. It was kind of the moment where I could not no longer make excuses, and I was done. Like I finished the duties they hired me for and left at that point because there was no way that things were going up from there. Does that make sense?
yeah? So what you're saying is, when you started at Zoe's, everything, starts how any restaurant starts, and we go on to the drag show, and you guys are getting blamed for the drag show that he wasn't promoting, that we talked about on the phone.
Yeah,
He
he was in
wasn't putting
charge
the
of the Facebook
promotions.
page, but never promoted. Yeah.
He wasn't promoting the show, and also as well, we go into working, and there's inappropriate sexual comments and inappropriate sexual behavior from the owner to the staff, and he even said things about you. Do you remember what he was said about you?
It was an environment for inappropriate comments. That was kind of the problem. Is it felt so all of this kind of cultivated, like each step of this just showed more and more of who he is as a person, and I think that's ultimately like what I'm here to talk about is just
So what
like
you're here
people
saying, that he's creating like a toxic culture at
absolutely.
his business that's in the community, and
Yeah, I mean
and it's hurting people.
I mean, yeah, it's beyond that. I mean, first of all, I believe that a tolerant environment requires an intolerance of intolerance. So if we talk about transphobic agendas in politics and it scares away people, the people it's scaring away are going to be people who don't support the community. And that's what I mean by a tolerant environment requires an intolerance of intolerance. We have to be okay with upsetting people who don't support us. We have to be okay with losing the business of people who don't support us if we want to have a space that's safe for everyone. If we don't, if we just want to have a bar where everyone can come, but not truly a safe space, then that's fine. But if you want to call your bar a place for everyone, if you want to treat your bar like it's somewhere that you can feel safe, when an employee comes to you about the potential of someone gunning down your entire restaurant because you have a huge garage door and you won't close the door because you don't want to lose the sales of the people sitting at that garage door, that's concerning to me. Yeah, for security reasons, we thought that it was inappropriate to have that whole space, both because they're coming for drag shows that children could walk by and see, and because there have been several acts of gun violence against queer spaces already. So we brought concerns to him about safety, and he shut them down because it would possibly affect the amount of money that he could make.
Well, you know what? I see what you mean, because I can, as I try to like form this as like, you know, a devil's advocate, it doesn't work because you're still being intolerant to someone, either its name, you know, their experience and who they are as a person. If you're not going to call them at least she, because I can understand if you don't get they, you know, I can kind of understand that, because it's a hard concept to see that word that you usually use as a plural as a singular, you know. So just call that person by the name that they prefer. Like the performer, oh my god, they sang Fatalia. I always call Fatalia Fatalia, or by their real name. I think it's Kristen or Christina. I'd rather call them by that name and then say they, because I know I won't get it, and I have that type of like, I have that awareness, you know, rather than just completely.
Well, that was part of the problem.
Yeah, I have that awareness where I know what you're saying. I'm trying to wrap this up. I have that awareness where I'm like this. Let me make sure that I call this person so they feel comfortable. I'm always like, I don't want to worry about someone's pronouns. I'm like, well, you're a gay guy and you're saying that you don't really care about that. It's kind of precipitates that white male gay thing where it doesn't really affect them. It doesn't exist. And I feel like you guys being treated like that while you work there is fucking wrong. You know, maybe he can do better on, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. Maybe he can do better on the trans movement. Actually, he should do better, because we've just went through the last couple of years of seeing people now being heard about there's missing Black children. I just saw in the news, trying to get a voice out there, you know. And now it'd be better that he's trying to like be better at that than just making money off our community, you know. And I think that's probably why I drive by, it's not really busy there, you know. Maybe the culture can change, you know. Maybe someone will see this and see what you experience, and maybe the culture will change. And I think there is a severe issue going on there, whether it being with just Jeff alone, but there is a definite service issue when people trying to get service. But if you have anything else to say, we got 1 minute, but we got to go.
All right. I think what you said is exactly what I have to say. Is when I was there, a lot of what I thought was, who is this bar for? Who is truly welcome here? And if I don't want to worry about their pronouns, well, that's not trans people. If he doesn't want to be held responsible for respecting different cultures, then who's left? Who is welcome at Zoe's? Is it a place for everyone?
But like I said, we ran out of time. I wanted to thank Lilith for being here. I want to thank our sponsors, Bulge Apparel and Gifts. I want to thank Tampa Bay Gay for putting myself and Zippers in the commercial. We'll see you guys next week. But before I go and say my call off, please, please, please check out Zippers. It is just open in Gulfport. It is on 49th and 29th. If you've ever been in Gulfport, you've seen that Gulfport Liquors. Right under that, you'll see Zippers Bar. I literally put that bar together with my own fucking hands. You know, I was spray painting and shit, hanging lights and, you know, taking shit down. You know, it was a wonderful experience, and it's really awesome to see people in the bar enjoying something that I put together with my own two hands. So if we're talking about supporting the community, please come out to Zippers. Like I said, it's in Gulfport on 49th and 22nd Avenue South. Thank you, Lilith, for being here. Hopefully Zoe's would get better, and we get a better leader, you know, a better person from Jeff. I don't think he's an evil person, you know, but we can have a better attitude, especially this inappropriate behavior towards your staff. But
even if he could just learn to grow and learn to accept change, then it wouldn't even need to find a better person, you know?
Yeah, well, growing and changing, you'll be a better person. But anyways, like I said, we ran out of time. We'll see you guys next time. And like I always like to say, please try to have a little bit more common courtesy. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.